Welcome back, dear friends. Ever so exciting today because, as you'll know if you've been watching these videos, I've finished making more of everything. All the kits I sell and everything else ready for Christmas. And now, finally, it's time to get on with the wonderful ukulele playing machine. Every time I've almost started it, something else has come up, whether it's washing machines, people creeping about the back garden, whatever, but now I'm going to get on with it. Now there comes a time in every steampunk machine's life when a little bit of tidying is involved. So it's time to talk enclosures. Now I made a little video yesterday because I started on one. How exciting. But I hadn't shaved for 2 weeks, so to prevent you having to be subjected to my tonsorial decadence, I didn't show my beauty, my glory on screen. You'll have to make do with a voiceover and some activity. Roll the film. Here's the shape we need, which will fit over this side. Triangle that fits in there. And to make it really simple, I have to stop myself, as you know. Really nice and simple. Had some of this timber that I use for the bases and the sides of the net throbbles and things. So it gives me a nice lot of depth, self-supporting. Can drill some holes down here and screw it onto the base. I'm just basic glued butt joints, I think they're called. Nothing clever at all, but just quick and simple. So I'm going to leave that set, and I'm going to make the front, while that's dry, I'm going to make the front, cut that out as well from a piece of laser ply. Now I've got no idea where the controls are going or what controls are going to be required, so I'm just going to start building it and see. I do love projects like this. Voila, as they say in the trade. So that's going to fit in there. And then around the edge I found some of this lovely twiddly wood, which is just wider, so I can, if I glue this on to the edge of that, it'll then slot in and it'll hold everything together. Now to get the angle of the dangle right, obviously 90 degrees are easy, because all you do is you get the right angle jig, and when you cut it to the right length you just offer it up until it's at 45 degrees. You know it'll fit. But, dear friends, how are we going to get this angle done? Well, in the past I've fiddled and farted around with protractors, not knowing what I'm doing, getting all confused and everything. And I suddenly remembered I had the adjustable angle thing, and I've completely, so long since I've used it, I've forgotten what it's called. Perhaps you remind me, or I'll look it up or something. But what I did is I just line this up with that top right handmost point, and with this point here, run out of hands, that and that basically, and then used it just to copy it onto the back of these two, and I'm hoping that it will work. I have got a bit of a track record with getting all the wrong angles, but never mind, I'm going to give that a go then. I see, governor, that's not bad. Look, 45, 45, 66, because in the end I did use a protractor and something else, but that's lovely. So now I've got to try and work out somehow a way of getting these glued onto those without getting excess glue squidging everywhere, because it will stop the stain from sticking, which is always a pain. And I don't know, I'm going to do that. Oh, and look, there's the beautiful V-blocks that I was using to clamp this at right angles when I was starting to make it. 8001 uses around the home and garden. The wonderful V-block, the gift that just doesn't keep, no, it does keep on giving, that's right. So useful. It's not pretty, but fingers crossed. Using my selection of strange weights to hold it all down. That's the worst enemy. Look, glue, despite carefully spreading it as far away from this edge as possible, it's seeped out. I'm going to get a damp cloth and try and get rid of as much of that as possible. I could, I suppose, have stained it all first, but then the stain is a thin layer, and if you try and stick things onto it, it can weaken the adhesive joint. It's the next morning. It's freezing cold. I think it's about 13 degrees C in here, but we can't afford to have the heating on now that the prices have gone through the roof. So, anyway, hopefully, despite the cold, the glue will have dried, and I thought I'd share this moment with you. Let's have a look. I was just using all these as spacers. They're interesting shapes, aren't they? They were the bits that were left over on each corner when I was cutting out the bases for the clock kits. That's right. Oh look, dear friends, it is so satisfying when a plan comes together beautifully. Oh, that's lovely. I've got to sand that top bit off, but I'm very pleased with that. That looked lovely. So next job, sand the top bit off. That's really nice, isn't it? That looked really nice, and it gives me plenty of room in here to have all sorts of exciting unspeakables, elecmatricity, etc, etc. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? Just stunning. And there are some little places where the glue stopped the sealed the surface of the wood so that the stain wouldn't go in. But I've used a nice sharp scalpel, this one in fact, which is far easier than trying to sand it. Because if you try and sand little bits like that right in the corners, basically it scuffs up the surface of the wood and is a pain in the backside. So a scalpel, and I'll paint that and just see, in fact, share with me the experience, and hopefully, I think that's better. Yeah, that's now absorbing it nice. There's a little speck down there as well. I'm sure that'll be fine now. By the way, when I talk about not being able to afford to heat the house, we're very lucky in that we could afford to heat the house. We haven't had the heating on this year yet at all. We're just wrapping up one, which helps the environment, less heating and all the rest of it. But it's mainly because I can't bear the thought, in fact the whole family can't bear the thought of these huge energy companies making so much money, record amounts of money, because the way all the economy works and everything else, they can. They're paying less for the energy, they're charging us more for the energy. I think that's how it's working out. And they're so proud of the incredible profits they're making in the last quarter and whatever else. It's just so wrong. As I say, we're lucky that we could afford to switch on, but so many millions of people can't. The elderly, all sorts of other people who can't actually afford to heat their own houses. It's absolutely disgusting. And the interesting thing is, because I was thinking, oh, they're appalling, it's the scum of the earth, these energy company bosses who are raking in these enormous profits. But then the other argument is, well, it's just capitalism. Basically, earlier in the year, lots of the energy companies went bankrupt because they couldn't afford to keep the cost to the customers down while still affording the increased cost of energy. So loads of them went bankrupt in the UK. And then the argument is, well, they had to put up with it then, we have to put up with it now. But there is just something so wrong. It's ridiculous. Anyway, mustn't grumble. And we're back in the room. Hey, here we are. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? And that just fits. I'm going to have a little step around the edge just to make it look nice. It seems to be square. It also doesn't detract too much away from this. So that's nice. It also gives me lots of room inside. By the way, this dark blemish here is just the natural wood grain. First thing is to fix this down. That's right, stop it. I'm going to fix this down and then I'll get back to you. But I think that'll look lovely. And I can build things on this and all sorts of other things. And then, once I've transferred all of that into there, and also found a way of connecting up these motors as well that looks nice, it leaves more room here for another one of them to do other things, because I've got some ideas, as I've mentioned, to have some sort of bellow system to blow cooling air through the plucking motors. Completely unnecessary because they're not overheating and they're working fine. But it would be lovely to have some sort of bellow system pumping away while it's playing its tunes. I'm going to fix this down using 50mm 4mm screws like so. It's just the simplest way of doing it. You could glue bits of wood on and then screw down, or brackets or whatever else. But this wood, the other nice thing about using it is that it's wide enough to drill an 8mm hole halfway down and then drill a 4mm hole the last little bits. The screw actually fits, the screws fit inside. Then I just arranged it in position, pushed the 4 screws down, drilled them, drilled pilot holes 1.5mm, and then countersunk the top of each hole, as I've said before. Otherwise, if you put a big screw, like a 4mm screw, into the surface of a piece of wood, it has to go somewhere, the wood, so you get like a little volcano shape at the top. which then helpfully lifts up whatever you're trying to screw down. But drilling a little countersink stops that from happening because it gives the wood somewhere to go. But, dear friends, before I glue this down, this is so exciting. So exciting. One of the first things I'm going to do is to work out how to get the wires from the 4 plucking motors over to here. There's a perfect side here for some sort of linkage. And I want some sort of way of getting air to blow through to keep the motors cool. Like I said, completely unnecessary, but never mind. And it would be lovely if each one could have a little LED that flickered, an orange LED, whenever it was plucked. So I'm going to achieve that by using some of this lovely black rubber hose that I use for the bottoms of the net throb wells. That's right, it's 8mm external diameter, which is perfect. I think it looked lovely because you've got the black bits here, you've got black there, little black bits there, 4 rubber hoses somehow going to the top of each motor and then coming down to some lovely ornate plumbing fitting there. Still not sure how to fix them onto the top. Oh, hang on, these are my latest thoughts. Hold on one moment. Plumbing fittings, you just can't get enough of them. These are beautiful 8mm, they're 8mm copper pipe fittings. And I realised that if I made some sort of laser cut thing that would fit on here, I could have one of these T-pieces sticking up at the top of each one. An LED could fit in this bit that you then see from above, and the black rubber pipe could come out that bit. And the great thing about the black rubber pipe is then all the wires and air can all go through it. Because I can't connect an LED straight to this motor because it's such a short pulse, I don't think it would even register that it was on. And also it's pulse width modulated as well, so it'll be all over the place, and it's swapping polarity each time it plucks. So I'm going to just have 2 wires going to an LED in each one of those. Needs must and all that. The other end though, we could have something like this. Now I have got 4 of each of these things. They can come out of the side of this box, and then the rubber pipe can come out the top of that and then loop across to each of those. I think it'll look lovely. So before I screw this down, I'm going to drill 4 holes so I can fix 4 of them in, spaced up this side. Oh, it's just so exciting. Oh, it's beyond words. I'm so pleased to be getting on with this. Fabulous. I've warmed up. How incredible. The amazing chemical reactions that can turn a roast dinner last night into heat and steampunk machines. Incredible. Lovely plumbing pieces. Now I think the wonderful thing about using plumbing, especially copper plumbing, these are called end feed because if you're plumbing them properly, you clean up the ends of the pipes and the ends of the sockets, and you put flux in them, and then you put them together and you heat them up, and then when they're hot you run some solder into the join. Whereas if you're making steampunk machines, of course, super glue. You run a little bit around the inside of the socket, push that on, twist it a little bit, that's it, an airtight seal. Obviously you couldn't use it if you were actually doing real plumbing in household with water and things, but for this sort of thing it is fantastic. This is a compression fitting, and you can see there's what they call an olive, a little one in that end and one in this end. Let's unscrew it so you can see what I'm whittering on about. So compression fittings don't use solder, they use an olive, which is a compressible, hence compression, ring. For good quality ones are copper, less good quality ones are brass. The ring, that is, the olive. That sits in, that goes in there, and then as you tighten it, it crushes the olive between the curved surface there and the curved surface there and produces a watertight seal, which is what I'm doing over here. Who needs a tripod? There we are, there's the olive in there. Drop the piece of copper in, which I'm then going to glue into the end of one of those other fittings. Get an adjustable wrench, and at least with this sort of thing, about half a turn is enough. And that has now crushed the olive to produce a really good mechanical and watertight seal if you're using water, or at least an airtight seal because I'm going to be blowing air through it. Lovely. Little ring of super glue. Put that in, twist it a little bit, and there we have it. And that will be set very quickly. And I'm going to fix them into the base. Does it focus? Fix it into the base. I've just drilled 4 15mm holes. I'm going to put some glue in there and then just twist them in. That's the easiest way of doing that. How lovely. That looks really nice. I'm very pleased with that. Classic steampunk, Victorian era, brass, copper, polished wood. If we sit that on there, we can sort of get a better idea. That looks nice, doesn't it? I'm pleased with that. What a lovely shiny brass. And then we'll have these pipes coming out of them and over to the motors. I also need to get these sensor wires into here and each of the stepper motors into here. It could all end up looking too cluttered, so I'm just thinking about ways of getting wires and things to where I want them to go. And I think 8mm copper tube, this is what that is, would be perfect for this with little 8mm copper fittings, because I can just bend it or use the little fittings and just get pipe where I want, nice and directly. You know, it would look lovely having a piece of copper just coming down from there, across, down and in. The wires can go through. Damn it, Janet, I missed a trick there. I should have put a towel wash on as it hasn't stopped raining all day. Anyhow, I thought for a laugh I'd just look it up on RS, which used to be Radio Spares and is now called something else, but for decades, probably a century now, it's been called RS. They do sell it, 8mm pipe. Look, 10 metres for £133, 33 excluding VAT, or £160 with VAT. It's unbelievable. Who would buy that much? Because I then just did a Google of it, and look, screw fix just down the road, deliver the next day, £24, £25 including VAT, same thing exactly. It'll be a annealed 8mm by 10mm copper pipe. It's amazing, isn't it? It does get a bit tedious, because every time I place orders for lots of exciting things, it takes hours of looking through trying to find the best deals, because there's so much difference. I mean, that's whatever percentage, £160 compared with £24.90. Isn't that incredible? But yet, RS, you find some things there are cheaper than anywhere else. And the barometric prognosticator 3 has just started telling me the weather forecast through the medium of music, and it's telling me that it is awful. It tells me it's awful because it's playing the temperature, pressure and humidity over the last 24 hours. But also it says stormy there, and it's absolutely right. I don't want to go on about it. Just trying to find 8mm end feed fittings because I've run out of them for 8mm, and £2.50 for two 90-degree bends. That's absolutely ridiculous. So back to the drawing board. Then I checked out a company, JTM Plumbing, which I use online. Same thing exactly, 50p each or 48p each. Isn't that ridiculous? So if I'd gone with RS and Screwfix, I'd have been paying probably 200 or 300% over what I could have got it for. Shop around, dear friends, shop around. Then, dear friends, I suddenly realised here are the two tuning posts, pegs or whatever, sticking out this side. Look, I can fix the motors in here. Let me find the motor I was showing you earlier. There it is. This is absolutely ideal. This is how I mounted the motor for the climatic revelator. That's right. So I drill a hole in the side and I can screw two of these motors in here. That saves a load of aggro trying to create some sort of enclosure here. Actually, I was actually looking forward to, but they can go in there and then I can link them through. Also, I'd cut out a shape of this 5mm acrylic. Is it? No, it's not. It's 10mm acrylic on the laser cutter. Isn't that absolutely incredible? Anyway, you don't need another monologue on how wonderful laser cutters are, and that just pushes over the end of these, so I can make something that connects a 5mm piece to that. And then look, any excuse. I've had these universal joints sitting around for a donkey's years, so I could use them just to take up any slight differences, fix them somehow here onto the motor shaft, and then they can attach to here. That should work beautifully, and also shiny things revolving and moving. It doesn't get much better than that. So I'm going to have a think about that. In the end, I've decided to drill the holes and mount the motors on the outside level with the edge, so they're going to be like that, simply because I didn't want to hide the universal joint, and there's enough gap there just to make a nice little sort of whatever diddly do. So I drilled the holes so I can mount them on the outside, and I used this amazing drill bit made in Germany. It's an adjustable flat bit, sort of. It's amazing. It's so useful if you haven't got the right size. It actually goes from, where are we, 16mm to 45mm diameter. It's amazing, very clever, and it even comes with two little heads, one different size sort of ranges. Right, let's get on. It's pouring with rain, Ziggy. You really don't want to go for a walk, do you? You don't know that. And then I'll have to show you the rain out the front door, and then I'll have to show you the rain out the back door, yes, because you won't believe it otherwise. Right, obviously it's time for a walk. So time to go and show Ziggy that it is raining at the front and the back. Yes. Now I've got the motors mounted, I thought before I put this down, started screwing down the wires through, I needed to sort out how to link the motors to the tuning things. 7 or 6 goes later, I think I finally managed to get a shape that will fit. These are all the ones, the rejects. I want it to be able to pull in and out, because with a universal joint they need to have a little bit of give and toast to. Oh, that was probably the first one. They need to be able to slide slightly in and out, but not too loose. Oh, I think I finally got there. And I'm just cutting the last one out, the last version. There we are. So I'm making a final set just for this side. There's going to be 2 bits I glue onto the shell shape, which this is cutting a second one out of, and I'm going to drill and tap 2 4mm holes for grub screws so I can screw it tightly onto a 5mm shaft. And my battery's about to go flat, so hopefully next time I speak to you it will be done. Make it so. That's what I'm talking about. How lovely. In the end I just glued the 5mm shafts into the hills. So that's lovely. I can get the whole thing together now. This is all very exciting. I'm making little things that are going to go over the back of each of the motors. I've experimented. They're made of 2 parts. There's that bit that just pushes from the back, obviously, but that just fits over. And then there's this bit which is going to glue onto there. By the way, if you're going to glue something, I've made the lower bit slightly 0.5 millimeter bigger. You can do it by feel. Hold it upside down. When you've got it feeling right, you can just drip a couple of drips of super glue in the back, and capillary reaction will carry it into the joint, which is really handy. If I had to spread it on here and put it, it would squidge out and it would never line up. Handy. And then that, one of these is going to glue in the eel like that. So we've got this, and then into that I'm going to glue an LED which I've sanded the front off so it's flat onto an 8mm diameter piece of acrylic, and that's going to glue in there. And then these lovely gems, I've sanded the metallic bit off one back of one of these gems. That is then going to stick in there. If that makes any sense, I don't know. And I'm going to spray these up. Once they're set, I'm going to spray them with brass, and then, as I say, they're going to fit on there, and then I can get flickering LEDs and the pipes and the wires and everything into those 4 bits. It's very enjoyable. And no, look, those 2 are now linked up, and they all lined up perfectly with the universal joints. Lovely. Just before I put them all together, I thought I'd just try one. And you get the impression it looks really nice because there's a red hint to it because of the red plastic, but also touches of white. Oh, I can get it any darker. And a lovely, oh look, that's nice. And a lovely pattern. I'm very pleased with that because it's bright enough to be able to be seen flickering on and off. Fabulous. I'll get them made up. How very satisfying. It's so enjoyable making things like this. You find a way of doing it that works really well, and then you can just make lots of them. I've put some of the heat shrink sleeve on the back just to insulate everything and make it a little bit more rugged. Focus. And I'm very pleased, and then just twisted the wires together in the electric hand drill. So fabulous. I will get them installed. Look what's just arrived. I can't believe it. In the old days, obviously, you'd wait a week or something when you ordered something. I still remember those days, and it always amazes me when I ordered this on the computer last night just to get my stock up because I realised I'd run out of this 8mm malleable copper pipe. That's arrived. It's just after lunch. And look, lovely little 8mm fittings. So I've got everything I need to be able to now hide the wires from these bits. And I haven't even finished these bits yet. Fabulous. By the way, I forgot to say, JTM Plumbing Merchants in the UK, online. No affiliation, of course, but they are very good and very reasonably priced, as I pointed out earlier in this video. Will you look at that? That's what I'm talking about. I didn't think this could get any more complicated, but I was wrong. I mean, I do like the look of these black pipes coming out of the fittings and then sort of making their way over. It's getting very busy here though with the copper bits and the silver bits. I thought silver would look nice, but it's a bit busy, but there's nothing I can do about it, so I'm not going to think about it. And the little red light gems in the top, so the wires go through inside here, and then of course the great thing is, because I'm also still working on the idea of the bellows, is that if I block off a piece of wood across here, I can seal all the wires through, and that gives me an air chamber that I can blow air through, and then that will go through because these pipes are quite big with very little wire in them. They can go through and then they'll blow through the motors to keep them cool. The absolute joy. I know I keep going on about how joyful everything is actually, but it is. The absolute joy of this sort of thing is tidying up all this chaos that's everywhere and then hiding it all away to make it all look really interesting and beautiful. So they could be pneumatic or something if it was a proper steampunk machine. How lovely. So next job, now the copper's arrived, I can get them away and I can get all those wires away, get everything into this side. Clear that for some rainy day project. I don't know what. I'm sure I can think of something to fill it up with. Possibly Victoria the Automaton, not sure about that. And then I can get building all the bits together in here. Notice my notes, copious notes, to remind me where all these go on the two interface boards. Lovely. Right, the dog wants to be taken out, so that's my next job. Very pleased with that. Can't wait to see the lights flickering on and off as it plucks. Just started thinking about how to get this cable across into the hole that I drilled, and I realised that it didn't have anything for the bottom of this fitting to purchase. I was thinking, how can I do that? So I thought, cut out a little ring on the laser cutter, 5mm acrylic, scrape off the paint around it, glue it on, outside diameter 8, Bob's your uncle. And then I came to do this, and I thought, right, but it was too tight. It's an 8mm hole and 8mm pipe, so one thing needs to be bigger or smaller. Initially I thought, I know, I'll be clever and use the lathe. Well, here's the results. Trying to turn down a very, very malleable material on a lathe. Yes, so, plan B, dun, dun, dun. Very, very useful things. Generally, I don't have the camera running when I do things like this because, inevitably, things of a hideous nature happen. But, the idea with this, I just want to open the hole up. Ever such a little bit. Let's try that now. That's better. That's better. Oh look, dear friends, it's hiding the wires. It's just lovely to use that 8mm copper and malleable copper, so you just have to bend it straight, which is really easy. Cuts with a normal cutting tool, which is zoink, one of them. And the little fittings, it's gorgeous. Now that looks lovely. So there's more wires hidden. Now I reckon that's enough for another video. Do let me know if you don't want me to go into such detail about things and would rather just see things finished. It is lovely that I've got so many viewers, because it feels like I'm not alone when I'm making things. I'm sharing it and you're all here and I've got someone to talk to and things like that. It's lovely, really, really nice. So next time it's going to be wiring up all of the exciting things inside here and getting it to do stuff again. Ah, it's such a joy. Thanks very much for watching. Do remember that I sell lots of stuff in my Etsy shop, and there's lots of information on my machines, steamhead.co.uk. Thanks again. Please remember to click subscribe, like and things like that if you like this sort of thing. Hope to see you next time. Thanks again.